Hello and good evening. Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to Voice of Reason. We are here today. My name is SYLVIA K and I will be your host for this evening. We are joined together with the founder herself. And as you know, we are discussing very sensitive but very important topics here today, certain things that need to be broken within our culture. And we are joined by, of course, no other than the founder, Angelique. How are you doing today, Angelique?
I'm a bit nervous.
Don't worry, we are gonna, it's completely understandable.
Yeah.
But we're gonna develop everything very nicely, very slowly, and we're gonna get to the root issue of why we believe these things happen in our society, not just in our society, but within the Congolese community, and how we are supposed to deal with it. And we are also joined by no other than an accredited counsellor, a psychotherapeutic counsellor as well, and she has her own practice. We are joined with NZINGA. Nice to meet you. Nice to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Like Sylvia said, we're talking about very, very sensitive topic. I'm NZINGA. I'm a founder of Aruka Journey, which is a blend of therapeutic approaches and coaching to help individuals to talk about the traumatic experiences and help them as well to move forward. And I also blend in biblical truth as well, because I believe we are dealing with a spiritual stronghold that needs an element of spiritual healing too as well. So
yes, ma'am. That's something that we are definitely going to be going forth, especially today. Within our community, we tend to see a lot of the time that when people speak out about grooming, about sexual violence and assault, you will tend to hear people say, "Dekolobate, balobakate." This is not how you deal with it. Faut honorer tes parents. But it's actually, I just want to let everybody know that that is not biblical. When God sent his light out, it was to shine and it was to break things. The Bible says that the light of God darkness cannot comprehend it, is what the Bible says. So if that's the case, that means when we shine our light, it's for things to be broken. So today we are going to be let's just go through some statistics. Here in the UK, there are specific statistics that are seen on how exactly sexual grooming, sexual assault takes place here in the UK. And we have found that there has been 489 recorded child sexual abuse and exploitation in England and Wales. And that is a grand number, given the fact that we are in the UK, but when you think about the fact that that is a lot of children, and that's only what has been recorded. That is not what is actually also taking place. These are only the ones that have been recorded.
Yeah.
You want to also understand that with the rise of social media, with the rise of children having easy access to the internet, that online grooming is actually rising very, very fast. Yeah. We have also seen that the NSPCC have logged 7,062 offences in 2023 to 2024, which has gone up by 89% since 2017 and 18. So we can see that there is a big rise. Let's not also forget that when we're talking about urban areas, that there is a lot of gang-related grooming as well, which is why we find children being groomed into certain gangs, whether it's boys, whether it's girls. You'll see the girls become, well, we can't even say they become sexually active, is the fact that their innocence has been stolen from them by people they thought cared for them. So there's so many things to take into consideration when we're talking about grooming. Yeah. And grooming is it starts subtle, but has grand consequences. So, Angelique, when we're talking about the subject of grooming, we know that that's something that you have unfortunately had to experience in your life, which is awful to say the least. I don't even think that's the right adjective to use. There is no adjective to use and to describe that kind of pain that you must have gone through. But just before we touch on how it took place in your life, Nzinga, I would love for you to just give us some background on grooming, please.
Yeah, no, thank you. Like you said, grooming is a process where an adult, by adult we mean someone who's 18 plus, uses manipulative approaches, right, to gain the trust of a vulnerable child. And I think it's important for us to also discuss what vulnerability is, because when a lot of people hear a child is vulnerable, they automatically think the child has a disability. But it's actually more than that. And what we like to use as professional, especially from the criminological background, is the term what we use, risk factors. Okay, so it's important for us to understand what those risk factors are that actually makes a child vulnerable to grooming. So grooming is a process where an adult begins to kind of like form a relationship with a child, a vulnerable child, by kind of like, giving gift, right? Isolating them from families, really just kind of like gaining trust in order, and the key word here is intent, okay? With the intent to commit sexual offense, and not just like, that doesn't just relate to sexual offense, but it can also be trafficking, sexual trafficking. You talked about gang violence, so we're talking about county lines where young people are groomed, befriended to with an intent to carry drugs from one place to another. That's county lines, okay? So we also have institutional grooming, where the grooming takes place within a religious setting, right? Something again that happens a lot in the community, not just in the Congolese community. It's not just isolated within the Congolese community, but in other communities. So grooming is a premeditating process that an adult uses to gain the trust of a child with an intent to commit sexual offences. Okay, and within the English law, there are 3 grooming offences, okay, that I think as viewers at home we need to be aware of, because a lot of us are taking place in actions that we don't know what it is. It could be actually a criminal offence, okay? So under the Sexual Offences Act 2003, there are 3 grooming offences that comes under Section 14, Section 15 and Section 15 Clause A. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to really
Yes,
quickly
please.
for
Yes,
us to
please.
really familiarise ourselves. So the first section, which is section 14, is arranging and facilitating a child sex offence. And what that looks like is when an adult, again, someone who's 18 years old plus, communicates with a child with an intent to commit sexual offences. And they communicate via social media, in person. So that's one offence. And it's also important to highlight that the offence can also take place without a child actually being there. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of paedophile hunters.
Yes.
So what they basically do is they create an account, a social media account. It could be the Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok account, and they pretend to be under the age of, they pretend to be a child, basically.
Yeah.
And so if an adult begins to engage with that child, with an intent to meet with a child and have sexual relation, not just sex, but to commit offences, that is also seen as a criminal offence. Okay? That's one aspect of it. And the other one is meeting a child following sexual grooming. So if you are intending upon forming that relationship online with the child, if you are intending on meeting that child with an intent to commit an offence, that is also a criminal offence.
Okay, thank you very much. Yep, did you have
and one more, and the third one is sexual communication with a child, where you're communicating with a child through sending nudity, sending inappropriate images to a child. That is a sexual offence as well. So it's really important for us to understand different types of groomings and the offences that carries with it. And currently, it carries 14 years in prison if you were found to be committing that offence. Okay, so
and you know what, I'm so glad that you mentioned prison. I'm so glad that you mentioned the 3 different types as well. Because one thing about what we want people to understand is that when we're tired of hearing, because if we're being honest, guys, when we think about kanga motema precedes the walls of marriage. It even goes when you're telling a child who has come to you and said, Mama, tonton oyo asimbinga, or this person has touched me inappropriately, and they tell you, kolobate, that's a form of kanga motema. We need to understand that these things is a way of suppressing the truth, because mum and dad are trying to hide face and baboi soni to come to the family. We need to understand that predators, there's a consequence to it, and you should go to jail. If it was up to me, which is not, bobo kufa. But who am I? I am no one but a young babe who is solely founded in Jesus Christ. But understand, if it was up to me personally, I feel like everyone should die. Who does that? However, there is mercy. But you should definitely be going to prison.
Absolutely.
They should definitely be going to prison. So with that understanding, I also want to highlight one more thing. We talk about, we've just quickly touched on grooming from an adult point of view. Let it be known there is also child sexual exploitation. When parents, carers, everybody, you need to be aware of this. The children that tend to be overexposed to certain things, unfortunately, tend to also be the children who are victims of sexual abuse that are now also sexually abusing other children. This is actually something that it's a common thing that takes place.
There's actually a recent study by the Metropolitan Police that shows that more than 50% of peer-to-peer grooming, sexual grooming. So we're talking about young people with young people grooming each other for sexual exploitation. That's the thing we don't talk about. So that is also on the increase, okay? And you talked about something really important, where children are exposed to certain things. You're putting your children at high risk, okay, of being exploited. You're making them vulnerable to perpetrators. And we can talk about some of those things later.
We will, 100% we will. And with that, that's also just a letting you guys know these are just there's so many subtopics, which is why you must be at the event happening in September, which we'll talk about later. But for now, Angelique, floors to you.
Oh gosh.
I want to just start by saying thank you. For the people who don't know, realistically, you people should be thanking Angelique in abundance.
100%,
Yeah?
100%.
Thanking her in abundance for the things that you're doing. You are putting forward such quote-unquote taboo subjects into the community, because at the end of the day, whilst this is a big thing that we're talking about, we are dealing with it in a community that doesn't like to talk about anything. The community would rather look good than tell you where you're going wrong, and it happens a lot. So what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. You know that you had backlash, but that doesn't compare to the amount of people that have freely come to tell you their story and how you're actually giving them a voice. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of the sensible people who have sense and know how to say thank you to someone who is actually being a huge hero for us. And I just want to say thank you, because I know that it takes a lot to have to consistently revisit certain things that have happened in your life.
Yeah.
With that, how was your first experience with grooming?
Well,
When you first came in contact is what I would like to say.
the first time I came in contact with child grooming, I was as young as the age of 7. It was by somebody, a family member. And you know, us African, like Congolese, what we do is everybody's uncles, everybody's auntie. So this particular gentleman was a man who was living in the same house as us. So we had a room where there was my uncle, which was my biological uncle, and there was him. And then there was us, like the children that would sleep in the same room with them. At the time, we didn't see nothing around by it, because this is our family dynamic. So I was already labelled as the black sheep, because I witnessed certain things that I shouldn't have witnessed. And as a kid, I'm very light talkative. So I take certain things that are serious as a joke. So I kept talking about my grandma, and I was like, oh, I witnessed my grandma, you know, butt naked in the living room, doing some enchantment and everything. And from then it was like, I'm a witch. And even for me, it was fascinating, because I was a child. I'm the type, like, I see certain things, I'll be, you know, laughing about it. But it made me become the black sheep of the family.
Because you witnessed?
Because I was talking about it. And you know, like in our culture, kindoki, witchcraft, it's something, as soon as, even if you're talking to someone who's a witch, they've been titled a witch, or befriend them, or be close to them, or touch anything of them, you're a witch. Or if in any sort of way, so I was called a witch. The story is long from there, but from then I started getting abuse. So the abuse was being beaten up, being starved, being basically separated with my peers, like my sibling, isolated. Like my sibling would be able to play, I wouldn't be able to play. I had to, I remember there was like a brown table where we lived in my family home. It wasn't my parents' home, it was my family member, like from my dad's side. And I would literally be sitting there, and they would have to put like gospel music that I had to, you know, remember, start singing it, you know, I was really isolated. So whenever I started getting beaten up, this uncle he was always in the room. It was weird. Like whenever I get beaten up, he would be in the room. So I will get sent to the room. So after you get whipped, after you get beaten, stomped and everything, you get sent to the room. So the first time, it was just like, you know, he came in the room, I'm there crying, and he was just like, why are you crying? I'm like, to beat me up.
Yeah.
And then he was like, okay, cool. So he'll sit there, watch. The second time, it was like him starting buying gifts. So it was little gifts like lollipops. And at the time, like, you're being abused. So as anybody in the circumstance of being abused, you're looking for any sort of comfort.
Yeah.
Someone that you can, you know, familiarize with and talk. So this uncle would first time we'll start buying gifts. Sometime it'll be like when I'm getting beaten up or I'm being told off, getting beaten up majority of the time, he will stand up as like in defense for me, to be like somebody who's like, why are you beating her up? Oh, don't do that, she's just a young kid. And then he will follow to the room. Or sometimes I will find him in the room and he would have either a toy, he would have chocolate, he would have sweet. And it started off like that. So for me, it was like, I'm getting sent to the room, so I'm okay, you beat me up, but I know like my don's there, so I'm gonna, you know, he's gonna give me treat. And then it went from giving treatment to little touchy games. Like, you know, touching the chest, touching private parts and stuff. And it at the time when I think about it, I wouldn't have had like any, it was just like, ew, you know, certain time you're just like, ugh.
And with so let's track back a little bit.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there was gift giving, and for the people at home, I want you guys to remember what Zinga said. It starts off with small gifts. It starts off with being the person that they can run to, the person that they're able to talk to, and then the gifts start taking place. So you mentioned it started with small gifts.
Yeah.
And then after the gifts, you mentioned that in public they will stand up for you because this is a family member, correct? So they'll be able to stand up for you. And then it went to touching. Now, when it got to that point, how were they just, because you're age 7, 8, 9, let's say.
7.
So you're at age 7. Exactly. Did they just tell you, hey, you're gonna touch here today? Or was it playful?
It was very playful. It started off as very playful. It started off as something just innocent. And then that's when it started to get manifest itself, to the point of
take your time,
of put you on the lap. Like, I want to show you something. I want to look. I want to, you know, look at this, to the point of you have to touch me. And then I can't go further. Then every time I'll say no, he'll be like, but you want me to go and tell your family member? You know they're going to beat you up. And there was even one point that I did go and tell the family member.
And what was said?
I was just rejected.
Just before we continue, I just want to highlight a few points that you've mentioned. So for the audience at home, I want you guys to listen out to what's being said. I'm sure maman, papa, binope botala oyo. Je suis sûre que vous comprenez. One thing that we need to stop doing, surtout biso ba Congolais, tantine oyo azoya pa biso atika yana biso uncle oyo azoya bazo visiter balala na ndako, balala na chambre na bino. No. That's a big no. D'ailleurs, Yemsa Bango va trouver un hôtel. Si vous en avez bongote, boyate. Why? Because you need to be able to protect your children. This is the overexposure that we're talking about. Secondly, something that also needs to be highlighted is that, unfortunately, Angelique, you were victimized as a witch because you had witnessed a family member who, by the sounds of it, was actually practicing witchcraft, correct? Yeah. Okay, so because you witnessed something, I want one thing the Congolese community needs to know: you are all fake Christians. Take it how you want, okay? I don't give a heck. It's not me that's saying it. Read your Bibles, you'll find out that you're a fake Christian. Why am I saying that you're a fake Christian? In fact, why does the Bible say you're a fake Christian? Because it specifically says, suffer not a witch to live. It doesn't mean that you go forth and you kill the witch. No, it's that you go in your secret place, you pray. You're supposed to pray. You're supposed to show out that you stand, that you have the Holy Spirit within you. You are supposed to look a witch in the eye and tell that witch, I am not afraid of you because I serve the great I am that I am. Yet, you would rather, obeta mwana batu, obeti bango, on dirait kindoki wana otika wana, parce que obeti bango, you lied. You need to be able to read your Bibles. Read your Bibles and read it properly. My bele Congolais bele is that you guys rely on whatever your pastor said. That's why these things take place anyway. Because number one, the Bible clearly says, why are we bringing the Bible into this? Because a lot of you say you're Christians. That's why. A lot of you guys say you're Christians, but then you rely on your pastor as if they're your God, and the Bible clearly told us, do not have any idols. Have no idols. Did I say it? I never said it. Read Deuteronomy. When in the 10 commandments, I beg your pardon, it says that what the first commandment is, do not have any idols. The Bible, God even proceeds on to say that we shouldn't make anything in any image. And then he says, by doing this, by going against these commandments, you will, up until the 3rd and 4th generation, will suffer the consequence. So because you made your pastor an idol, now God even says, go to the idol that's deaf, dumb and blind to see if they will help you. It says in Isaiah. So all these things is to say that by making a child listen to gospel, not saying that it doesn't have any effect, but what's that going to do when you could have been praying for the child? You could have laid hands on the child, but no, you're a coward. So you went out the cowardly way. Another thing that we would like to highlight with what you've mentioned, Angelique, is the fact that when you went to go and speak, the first time you went to say something, you were rejected. Something that takes place a lot is listen to children. Yes, children may fib here and there. No one teaches them that. It takes place sometimes, but it doesn't mean they're lying, though. You need to be able to listen out properly to what children are saying, and then you'll be able to find out that there is truth in what they're saying. When a child says something so extreme, why would you think they're lying, and why would you then reject them? Please, Angelique.
So I was rejected, and when I was rejected, I was sent back to the room. And I remember when I was sent back to the room, he said,
the room where he was always in.
And it was like, it wasn't even like I was taken away from it. I was still
exposed to him
going into that room. So it continued for some bit. So it was every time I get beaten up or any occasion that he can have me alone, he would do whatever he wants.
Didn't anybody in the house realize that you was always alone with him?
No. I was already black sheep. When you're a black sheep, nobody cares. Nobody has time to notice anything is wrong with you. Everybody tend to, who cares? As long as you're away, you're not, when they're having fun or you're not buckling to the thing, then no. Then for a while, I think it went on for a couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden, back in those times, parents would pay pastors or pastoral people to do a deliverance, which we say exorcism. Is it exorcism?
Yes. Yeah.
And they will pay them. And all I remember was I saw 2 men who I never knew, never seen in my life, just be given a bag of my clothes and being told that I'm going to go with them. Yeah.
Sorry. You were... So, hold on. I think we really need to digest that a little bit. You went to the adults. You told them what had happened. They reject you. You then have to go and you're subjected to the same room where the same person who was abusing you would be.
Yep.
And then they pay false pastors. Yeah. False pastors. Because you're not supposed to exchange money for deliverance. That's divination. Okay?
Back in the days, that was common.
I know, that's why they're all witches and wizards. I never said it. The Bible did. If you read it, you would know. So they were given money and you were then sent with your bags with 2 men you did not know.
Yep.
By family members.
Yep.
Who knew that you had been abused.
Yep.
Okay, and then what happened?
So I remember we went to some place. It was like a house, and I remember just remembering entering into that house. There was quite a lot of them. There were like 2 ladies and other men that was there. And the first day was just like they're showing like the whole room where the house is and everything. And then started like, you know, you've come here because you're a witch, you need deliverance. And now as an adult thinking about it, you can't imagine how traumatizing that is. You're in a place where I couldn't even see, my mom wasn't there, my dad wasn't there, my brothers wasn't there. I was with unknown people. And
Still at age 7.
yeah. So with that age, I remember, I'm going to fast a little bit forward. It was like, they'll sit me and surround me, put me in the middle. I can't touch anything. My hands need to be on the floor like this. So any movement you make is like, even twitching your eyes or just going like this, it means like you're giving a signal to the other witches. They would starve you in a way that you don't eat. So there was days that I didn't eat, I didn't drink. And they will be like, oh, you have to say that, you know, what witches you guys are planning to do to your dad. Like them time my dad needed to travel. They like say that, you know, if you don't accept that you're a witch, then you won't get food. So it was like bare extreme, like you're seeing adults shouting, praising, and then to the point that they even shaved my hair. So I didn't have hair because my hair was said that to be antenne parabolique. That's how I was communicating with the witches. So nighttime I wouldn't, like there'll be some nights I wouldn't sleep. They'll wake you up during the night. Certain days, like even going to the shower to have a bath, the man will literally stand in front and watch me.
A man that you don't know.
Yeah.
So a random fake pastor will stand there and watch a 7-year-old shower.
So he'll watch so that you don't drink the water. They'll literally starve you.
Because you're not supposed to drink, nor...
No, because that's how witchcraft is supposed to come out. So, so I'm numbing myself right now.
Don't, please, I just want you to take your time as well.
So they'll be repeating Bible scriptures and they'll be like, if you want to eat, you need to say what you guys are planning for your dad. And at that moment, I didn't have no clue. So I started to lie. I said, yeah, we're planning to, you know, we're stopping him. I would just guess. Yeah. And then they'll be like, okay, cool. After that, they'll give you food. But in the night, that one Pacific pastor will be touching me in the night. It started off with just touching a thigh, to touching a private, to doing whatever he wanted. And if I didn't, I would be starved. I will be called witches, I'll be called names, and they'll be like, they'll prolong my time of even going back to my parent. So I had nobody. And from that time until that continued for a couple of times. My brain kind of blocks certain things, but it continued for a while to the point to one time, he would wait like for everybody to go. So he would like, I had to be supervised. I couldn't stay. Even where we were staying, other children couldn't play with me. So even as an adult now, I struggle to have social life.
Adult
like,
friends.
To have friends.
Yeah.
I have people who would be like, your behavior is bad. Like, I would switch you off. Like, I would block you. Like, it's just like that. So one day he waited everybody to go. And he pulled me over and he was like, we're going in the room. And you know what's going to happen? You can't say anything. I don't know my family address. I don't have no telephone number. I don't know where I am. I don't have nothing. What am I going to do? So from that day or that time, it ended up one of the lady walking into the room and found him.
And then what happened?
He said it was me. I seduced him. Wow. So from that...
He said, this pastor, entre parenthèses, said that a 7-year-old that he was supposed to be doing deliverance on had seduced him.
I've had that comment all the time. Like even as a teenager, I became very, very rebel because of that. So it was a title that has been, even sometimes when I go to church, like when someone mentioned about anything to do with my body, I become very defensive. Because for me, that was what being labelled.
Yeah.
After that, the lady was like, no, that's a child. She came here for deliverance. All of a sudden, it was over. Like, you know, pack your bags, get the stuff, oh, she's delivered and send me back.
So all of a sudden you was delivered at that moment because he had been, because he had been caught sexually abusing you.
He took me out. That woman still stayed there because she was shocked. I don't remember her name. I remember she had long hair. She was shocked. I remember her screaming. She was screaming so much. Like, I think she came also for her deliverance. That she was just left screaming and he just dragged me out. And I was dragged on the street. And on the way, he was telling me, like, how I'm going to lie. How I'm going to take the fall. And...
Which is another form of grooming.
And I remember coming back. He was like, tell them it was you. You have the spirit. It's you.
The spirit that I was supposed to be delivered from. So, with that, there's a few things that we want to touch on.
Absolutely.
NZINGA, I'm going to let you go, please.
Honestly, I've heard Angelique's stories before I begin to unpack some of the things that she shared. Angelique's story is so complex. It's so... every time I hear it, it's like, am I listening to a life? Is this real life or is it in a movie?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of layers within her story that is just so shocking. And one of the things that I would like to touch on is Stockholm Syndrome, which I'll talk about it later a little bit. But what perpetrators like to kind of like feed on is, again, we talked about vulnerability, but I like to we like to call it risk factor, is look at the risk factor of the child. And the first risk factor that that we can see in Angelique's story is the restructuring of her family.
Yes.
Yeah, the foundation wasn't strong. We see the absence of the father, we see the absence of the mother, and so she's automatically vulnerable. Okay, being sent to a family member who, instead of being, you know, loving and caring, begins to abuse the child. Okay, and again, we talked about the tactics that perpetrators would use, right, to groom and then carry out their sadistic offense. It's so traumatic, honestly. Angelique, you are so strong, so brave.
Cool.
To share her story, and I don't understand why people coming against that for sharing her story. And I said this at the beginning because I like to bring in biblical truth as well into my conversations. The Bible says that God will punish the children to the 4th and 3rd generation because of the sins of the fathers. Okay, and I said when we were talking here, could this be the generation that God is actually using to expose the consequences of traumatic experiences that children experience at the hands of their parents, family members? So this is a time for us to really reflect, because as a practitioner, where I've worked with individuals who have been abused, right? The state, the way it impacts the mental state, it's so sad. Like, you can only begin to understand that this is a crisis. And I would say, I'll go further to say this is a pandemic.
Yeah.
You will only begin to understand the seriousness of this situation if you work within the criminal system, criminal justice system, if you work in education, and if you work within the mental health services. You begin to understand just how people's lives have been traumatized, stuck because of cases like Angelique's, right? We see, again, the absence of the father. The perpetrators really kind of feeds up on that, okay? Being abused by a man, right? Being kind of like made to feel that they can trust them, right? And this is where Stockholm Syndrome comes in. Psychologists and criminologists use this phenomenon to understand. It's kind of like trauma bonding, right? What happens, like what we need to be aware when abuse happens, any form of abuse happens, our nervous system rewires, okay? So things that God put in place to function the way they do, because this incident has happened, it distorts the way we view people, right? So when Angelique was talking about feeling safe at some extent towards the perpetrator, it's a Stockholm syndrome. Okay, she had no one to kind of protect her. Yes, the abuse was happening, but this abuser was providing some element of security where Angelique was not getting it from other family members.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we need to be very, very careful, like you said, my sister, when we are inviting people into our houses. Yes, they are family. Yes, we need to accommodate for our families, but we need to put the care, the need of our children first, okay?
Yes.
And I'm not saying that to kind of like being suspecting family members or things of that nature, but we need to be very, very, very vigilant. And Angelique talks about, she went through multiple layers of abuse.
Yeah.
We see her being re-traumatized, where she was sent to the perpetrator. That's re-traumatizing the child, okay? Now, and then being rejected, right? A child at the age of 7 going through multiple layers of abuse, of rejection. No wonder why we have adults who are growing up who are not self-confident, who don't believe in the potential that God has placed in them, who don't feel like they belong, right? Because they've been carrying negative labels, right? Name calling. She was called a witch.
Yeah.
Like, how can you call a child who's been abused a witch? Where is your accountability, adults? Where is your accountability? A child's mind does not develop until they reach the age of 25.
Yeah.
So a child cannot even begin to comprehend, like, what's happening to me? Like, you know, why is this happening to me? Right? So these are some of the things that I can see in Angelique's story that a lot of people go through.
Yeah.
Yeah? It's so sad. Honestly, those people needs to be
put to jail.
Yes.
Put to jail. What I don't want to shy away from is the fact that when we look around in our community, we lie so heavily on our religion, on our faith, and we try to hide behind the fact that we should give everybody grace and hide behind the fact that we must forgive everybody, which I'm not saying isn't biblical. It is. You must forgive everybody no matter what takes place in your life. That's scriptural. That's not me saying anything. It's scriptural. It's required, and God knows why that's required in our lives. We ought to give everybody grace, yes, but at the same time we ought to hold people accountable for their nonsense.
Punishment. There
is punishment. There's even punishment for us if we do, like, by doing wrong in the eyes of God. Something that is truly an epidemic, just like you said, within the Congolese culture, within the Congolese community, is the pastors, prophets, apostles, evangelists, the people that hide behind their titles, that esteem the title more than the fact that, as if you're not a leader, you're actually supposed to be a servant. It's service that you're supposed to be, but in fact, what you want everybody to do is service you. To the point where you have now become a diviner, that you require money to do deliverance. You are a wizard, you are a witch, according to the word of God, and you will be punished otherwise, lest you repent. It is also necessary to know that she was a child. If I'm being honest with everybody at home, this is the first time I'm hearing it to this detail. And there's everything in me, as I'm hosting the show in all professionalism, to not break down and cuss out everybody with every word that I know how, which I don't like using. But whilst we try and find some light and jest in this, it's so traumatizing to know that a 7-year-old, I want you guys to think about your children. Just because you might not have children, just because you have children and not your children, just because you might see a child on the road, you are required as an adult to look after children. Any child that comes into my vicinity, I'm going to take you on like my child, and baby, you will be well looked after. Yeah. Because if anything happens to you, it is our responsibility. Mm-hmm. So to the adults who were in that household, to the people that were abusing baby Angelique, at that age, you should be held accountable 100%. For your actions. Yeah. Now, I'm going to ask you a few more questions, Angelique, but I want you to hear where I'm asking you from, because unfortunately, within our community, again, we have ignorant people who would ask questions, and I would like you both to answer, but given that is the testimony of Angelique, I'm going to start with Angelique. They say stupid things as, "Malenga ke ango pwane no lobakite." You wanted it, why didn't you say? Well, what do you say to those people who say that?
Because my story didn't end there.
Yeah, I guess.
And so I think this is where a lot of people are familiarized with me is because the abuse continued for so long, right?
When you went back again?
When I went back, then traveled.
The same person?
The same person wasn't there anymore. I think he left. I don't know what happened.
So after you went back, left. I beg your pardon. So after you went back from finding out from when this pastor got caught,
they sent me straight away back, but I wasn't back with the family member. I was back with my dad.
Okay.
Because you need to remember, like back in those days, one thing was common was children who was labelled Ndoki were always sent to the pastors. Families didn't really want people like us. They will put everybody in a bunch. Churches couldn't understand, so they would do the fasting. That's why you have a lot, like there's combat spiritual, there's all of that, and a lot of the methods is torture, enable for you to confess. But there are certain kids who don't know what they're confessing to, but because they just don't want you to beat them up, they're going to confess and everything, and this is where it births this psychological mentality of lying. After then, when I was with my dad, it wasn't long. We travelled. After we travelled, you know, came about here, we started, I started living with a family member, which was my blood family member. And she started abusing me because of that.
She started physically abusing you?
Yes. It was like more like wire, like, you know, TV wires. They'll whip you, cut you with Gillette, starve you again, put pepper in your vagina, all over your body, leave you butt naked, open the door for your sibling to see you. It was much more like trauma, to the point of like, it was more like, and the funny thing is,
so it was like humiliation rituals.
It was more humiliation. I wasn't allowed. I remember even like, I would have school uniform and stuff, and Sunday I would have to borrow my cousin's clothes for me to go church. And then when we'll come back to church, my cousin would be like, give me, that's my clothes. That's what my dad has bought for me. And I wasn't allowed to see my dad. I wasn't allowed to tell my dad what was happening, because my father trusted his family. He trusted these individuals, because in our Congolese community, the men always believe like the woman is supposed to live with the woman, the men are supposed to live with the men.
Yeah.
Because that's why it helps them find identity and know about culture and everything. And then it got to a point where I was not sleeping in the night, because they would, like weekends, like Fridays, I would not sleep in the night. I'll have to stay awake until like 6 a.m. And I'll have to be enchanting like Bible verses. I have to sit there like the same thing over again. Like I have to confess. I confess my witchcraft. I confess this. It was very daunting. By that time, I'm like 9, and I wasn't even allowed to play with siblings. And even certain times, because of the way grooming was presented to me in a playful manner, when we were with other children, we were literally playing it like that. So I thought it was normal. So
I beg your pardon. So we see, I just want to make it plain for everyone who's listening. Let's just list them all out. There's been sexual abuse from the age of 7. There was then sexual abuse by a religious leader at the age of 7. There is then physical abuse at age of 7 as well within all of that. There is then sent to family member's house who your dad trusted, where there is constant physical abuse.
Yeah.
There's also bullying by children because they have witnessed adults that they trust bullying you, in essence, excluding you. So now they are repeating said behavior.
This behavior, until even as now as adult, it does repeat itself. But
and then you've also got the fact that you've now mentioned as well, there was humiliation, being told to stand naked for other people
in a room, like,
and
during
the
holiday,
door, and the door will be open.
Like, basically, they'll put pepper on me and then leave me naked. Like, you have to be naked. They'll put in my eye, put in my ear, put in my nose, my mouth, my anal, my vagina, all over wiped over. And there was a specific jar that the specific family member would do, would grind this pili and put it, and then they'll leave me in the room and I'll be starved, and in the morning they'll only give me like slice of bread and a tea. That
family member is also committing child sexual abuse, by the way, because the fact that not only was you physically abusing, not only is that physical abuse, but touching a child in those private areas to perform such abuse is also sexual abuse. So let's just layer it. We're just layering it so that way there's people that are understanding.
Complex.
And this is all we are now, when we're looking at Angelique now, we're now at the age of 9. We are now at the tender age of 9 years old. That this woman, but this girl, has gone through. I want us to also understand that, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me, but from research and reading that I've also done, when people go through traumatic things, they get stuck at that age mentally.
Yeah.
Mentally, they're stuck at that age.
It's called the freeze mode.
Freeze world. Thank you so much for the correct term. It's called a freeze world. So when you go through so much traumatic things, you get stuck at that age, which is why you find, and which is why you mentioned as well, people who see the true effect and understand the consequences of sexual abuse, work in education and criminal justice system
and mental health services. You will see that a lot.
And the reason why I'm pointing out education specifically, because then these children go to school and they do not perform in school. And then we wonder why they're not performing in school. Maybe it's because they went through so much traumatic things that they are mentally, and their soul is somewhat stuck at a specific time.
Can I just add as well?
Please.
Not just that, but also we have to understand, like I mentioned before, it rewires our nervous system. Okay, so there are certain parts in our brain that are meant to function. Now, because abuse is taking place, certain parts of the brain is frozen. So the frontal cortex of the brain, which is responsible for reasoning and rationale, it stays inactive. You cannot reason properly, and that's what you said. Like, some children who abuse, they may go to school, they might not engage well, they may not perform well, because certain parts of the brain is stuck, right? It's stuck in that fight, like it's just inactive. Okay, and then we label children as problematic, we blame them as troublemakers without understanding the context of what's going on in their lives. Something that Angelique touched on is other children were also kind of like doing what the adults were doing. And within criminology, for us to understand criminal behavior, we need to understand some theoretical understanding, like theoretical kind of like knowledge of what makes a criminal behavior. Okay, what makes people to commit certain offences. And one of those factors is looking at environmental factors. Okay, I'm not sure if many people have come across the term of social learning theory. So what that basically means is, as children, we learn by observation. Okay, everything that goes around in our surroundings, we are mimicking it, we are normalizing it. Why? Because we are looking up to an adult who's supposed to be a trusted adult, carrying out sadistic act of violence, and the children normalize that. Why? Because they trust the adult. And this is why we see other children mimicking it or doing it on other children. Why? Because it is a learnt behavior, right? And one thing that we often need to really understand, and what I've been getting or hearing from Angelique's story, is that everyone in her surrounding adults have themselves been through some sort of abuse.
Yes.
And that's not an excuse for your behavior, by the way. It is not an excuse, okay? Because for a woman, and I would like to point as well, a lot of us are aware, or we have more understanding that, abuse is perpetrated by men.
Yeah.
Recent studies actually shows that the sexual abuse are also being perpetrated by female.
Yes.
Okay. There's a recent study that indicates that 11% of women, 11% of offenders are actually committed by women. There is an organization, I forgot what the name, the name of the organization is called, but they basically have receiving a lot of women who express or who have intrusive thoughts of sexual behavior towards children. Okay, so this is what I say, this is a crisis. Okay, this is a crisis. People in Angelique's life, I think they have been through some level of abuse.
Yeah. Because
for a woman to perpetrate that kind of horror to a child, it's just horrific. Disgusting. The Bible says that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Yeah.
Right? A person will only give what they carry. So your father trusted you to a family member whose heart is, I'm sorry to use this term, but corrupted.
Without a doubt.
Okay? And this is one of the things as well, as parents, when we're sending our children, we need to teach them certain things to be aware of.
Yes.
Yes, we might be sending them to family members, but we need to be aware of, we need to teach them certain things, right? Don't send your children on as an empty canvas.
Yeah.
Right? Educate them. And this is why it's so important that Angelique is raising awareness so that parents can be informed to equip the children and educate the children to protect themselves. Okay? It's traumatic.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
Angelique.
Yeah.
You're doing so good, by the way.
Thanks. So this part, I have been ashamed of it for years. Psychologically,
yes.
This is later because after there's so much abuse that went on, I think school started to notice certain things. I was bringing rotten food. My behavior was different. I was stealing from other children's packed lunch because some of the time I didn't eat. I had to clean. I had to, anything went wrong, it was put on me.
Yeah.
So even in school, like the way I would get angry, even now as an adult, I think it goes down. I just try not to get angry because when I get angry, it's like,
it's not today's anger.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's and the specific things that happen. It was my psychiatrist that literally like pointed to was like the reason why this is what's triggering you because when you were young, this. But when I'm reaching like 10, 11 and all of that, obviously I remember like the school. Like the neighbor also knew because we used to go same. So PE time, I'll take off my clothes and you'll see marks over my body. And at one time, I think the family member beat me up, hit me with a belt, which I had a blood clot on my left leg. So the blood clot was left for so long that it became darkened and there was like blood and, puffs and all of that. So the teacher must have saw it and they was like, what's wrong? I just couldn't. I remember I got beaten up because another kid, and I was saying that it wasn't me. And this is why even as an adult, when I'm saying like, I didn't do it, and people keep forcing, I think now I'm able to just like block you because I'd rather not harm you because it gets to a point that I literally black out.
Yeah.
That is dangerous not only for you, but it's for me.
Yeah.
So I got beaten up and I remember, I can never forget that. I got beaten up because of just sitting in front. The boy's mum took us out. And I remember she said, because you're the adult, you can sit in front. And her son got so angry that because he was just sitting at the back. And we went, I remember where we were living, we just went to the corner. It was like a Tesco, it was like Toys R Us. And we came back, that boy rushed out. And because they knew what this particular family member, and everybody knew, even in the church where we used to go,
They knew that you was being beat up like this?
They knew. Everybody knew. Everybody was aware.
And they used to go to church?
Yes. So every time I'll speak out, everybody will silence art. Even with fellow friends, like today I have like my siblings, like a lot of my cousins, like, why are you so agitated? Why like you're so, because I can't. Like when I was speaking the truth, nobody believed me. When I was voicing my hurt, my pain, I was shut down. It was like, you can't talk, Ozandoki, you can't talk. You're one of my bae, you can't talk. I was so much labelled that I didn't have anything. So I remember that day, the kid ran out of the door. I went and told my family member. And I remember when I came, the mum was even telling this particular family member, she didn't do anything. They said, no, I know this kid. I take care of her. I remember she went to grab the belt and whipped me. And I remember I got whipped so hard that I was literally screaming. I was stomped. I was beaten up. I was blamed for hypnotizing the mum to pick me over their own child. So the next day, anyway, PE, they saw what happened and they sent me to, like, you know, social worker. They went even to analyze my whole body. And I remember certain family members came to the office when the officers were asking questions. And they're like, I know, like, my father, if he's watching this, he's going to be like, how did you know? I remember particular certain family member telling my dad, tell them that your daughter is a liar. Your daughter always lies. And even though they were saying that, the marks that was on my body
were a lie.
I couldn't afflict that at such a young age on my own body. It was too bad that they had to send me with my dad. And being with my father, he was a man. Like, he couldn't take care of me on his own. We became homeless. I used to sleep in the car with my dad. I remember, like, 2004, 5, 6, them time. It was very a complex time. Snow during January, because I used to get kicked out long. There's a lot to this story, but to a point, went into a relationship with somebody. And I know
How old was you at this time?
My brain is not gonna...
So we've gone from 7
I'm
to
about
9.
10, 11, going to 12, around those
So
ages.
now we're between, like, pre-teens.
Yes.
And you get into a relationship.
So, no.
Okay.
So, I am gone into social services and I'm coming back and finding my father in a relationship.
Oh.
And in this relationship, there's a young boy in this relationship.
So you're a brother or?
A stepbrother.
A stepbrother. Got it.
And I feel like this is something I'm speaking it out, not just for myself, for those who has felt ashamed. Because, you know, grooming takes away the ability for you to understand that you are innocent. That the person in question is older than you, who understands wrong and right. And this particular stepbrother started off with little things of follow me to the shower. Like doing little games of looking in the shower.
And how old was this stepbrother?
I think they're by like 20s.
So you was in your pre-teens and they were in their 20s. Okay.
So at this time, it became like somebody comfort. It became somebody who was chilling for me. So even though like my father's sibling will cause trouble, even in the church we were going, people were looking at me sideways. The only person I had was my dad, and my dad was going work and had this woman in his life that I didn't like because nobody replaced my mom. I had hearing like my mom's not gonna come, like I need to forget it. And I'm stuck in this house and this man is being like a brother but at the same time playing funny games with me. And to the point it became like my comfort. Until the time he took my virginity. So it became like a kind of relationship where it was like...
I beg your pardon. I just want us to rephrase that. For anyone listening to this, don't take it as Alinga Kiango.
No, please, let's not go there. No.
Because there's someone that's going to hear that.
No.
But we're gonna need to, for the ignorant people who are gonna also listen to us and listen to the story. Mais moi en gros, comment ça se fait que bah au beta yeka, ça veut dire que penza moi ma bé hein, parce que comment ça se fait ezakaka moi moko boy. That's because when a child has consistently gone through these things, it is clear that she's a victim. It is clear that she's vulnerable. So any wicked, evil perpetrator will be able to see that and know they can easily take advantage of this child. So now we get to a place in Angelique's life where she is with her stepbrother and her stepbrother doesn't take her virginity. Her stepbrother rapes her.
Yeah.
I want to make that so clear. And in that rape, her virginity is robbed from her, because that's what it is. It was robbed. Just like her innocence was robbed from her at the sweet and tender age of 7 years old.
So at that moment, it became like a little comfort when everybody else hates me. Everybody else see the bad of me. Until one day, because I was seeing it like, I have a boyfriend.
So you kind of saw him like your boyfriend?
Yes.
Even though he was your stepbrother?
Yes.
So, again, because there's people at home who are going to think this, you know? They're going to be, mais, si Azaki compare à ça veut dire que Olingaki yango. Tu aimais ça. Parce que maintenant, tu les regardais, on dirait c'est ton copain.
But this is where it becomes like, this is why the power of grooming.
Yeah, it's a power imbalance.
And I feel like there's been a lot of us that's been judged and we've forgotten that we are the victim. And it's like, and I hate people that says, yeah, what does a child know?
Yeah.
You're telling me as a grown-up, you're not able to stop a child.
Yeah.
That means you're not an adult.
Yeah.
You're a sick pervert. So for that, it went on. And I remember one time I was speaking to a family member, because I remember my dad brought me back to a family member.
So now you left your dad's house?
No, like it was one day we just went to the family member. Because the one thing Congolese people do is, even though you know this person has abused your child, you still bring that person in. And I have what we call Stockholm syndrome. Even till this day, is like, I always feel like with that family member, I have to prove myself.
Is it the first family member that abused you, or is it?
No, it's the second. So the first came after, because she was back home. She came after. But the second one, I literally saw her as my mum. That's how much she had the same complex skin color as my mum. She had the same. Do you understand? Like, I saw her as my mum. So the things I remember, because before even she became this villain, she gave me love. I was calling her mum. Then one day, it just stopped. So I remember going to her house and I was there with my siblings. And I'm like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe so-and-so what he's doing to me. So yet again, and this is where my psychiatrist, like, they diagnosed me with autism, because when things people are supposed to be afraid, I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
I don't see, like, when you'll be like, I'll be like, okay.
Yeah.
It just looked fun. So I'm telling my siblings, like, oh, look what he's doing to me, da 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 da. And my siblings are looking at me like,
that doesn't sound right.
It doesn't sound right. So this family member hears it, and the first thing I got was accused.
Wow.
This child already a beba. This child already, and I was judged because my body was developed.
Just pause on that point. Zinga, I would really love for you to touch on the fact that children who are abused at early age are pushed into puberty earlier.
Yeah.
If you can just please expand on that.
Yeah, it's honestly Angelique's story again. So many layers.
Yes.
For those of you that are watching and are listening to her story, is if you need to take a break, take deep breath, because it is really intense. Okay, she's gone through a lot, multiple layers of abuse. Like I said at the beginning, a child's brain is not developed until at least 25 years old. Okay, with the puberty situation, the child is pushed. Like, you have to understand, she went through a lot of exposure to trauma, okay, which means that she had to grow up very, very, very fast, be able to defend herself, okay, and our body grows differently, okay. That some girls or some children, you see they're 12 but their body is developed already, right? It's just we're all different, right? There's a biological kind of like factors into that, but that does not excuse an adult to blame a child for someone that an adult is aware of that they're doing, okay. A size of a child should not authorize you to abuse them. Okay, we live in this age where there's chemicals in our food that helps people grow very, very, very fast, right? And then with men or women, they're confused when they see a child walking, body developed. We all have different shapes that God has graced us with. Okay, it's not because she's showing or she wants it, because people often see, especially when she's wearing a specific type of clothing, you see the shape, you say, okay, well, she's giving herself, right? We should not use that as an excuse to abuse a child, okay? You are a full-grown adult. You are aware of what you're doing. It's a crime, okay? It's a crime. So it's important for us to, again, I hone that on parents quite a lot, because that's to be the foundation of everything. And Angelique didn't have a safe space. She grew up going from toxic environment after toxic environment, and then finding comfort in abusers, right? And it's just
heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. It is
awful, and I think that's something as well that we see in the community that happens a lot. And just to mention that, there's also I remember I was reading a research paper, and actually when children are sexually abused, it does something, like you said, it rewires the nervous system, where in actuality, it pushes them into an earlier start to their puberty. So when we're seeing that Angelique is 10, 11 years old and she's developed more than any other child, that's because she was exposed to things way earlier that have pushed her body to react to what is happening to her. So essentially what her body is saying without realizing is, these things are happening, but they're supposed to be happening when this takes place. So seeing as this hasn't taken place as yet, the body pushes itself to accelerate that process than it's supposed to, because of sexual perpetrators who are wicked, who are horrible, and who are sadistic in their ways, that they are doing this to a child. So we see now in Angelique's life where, again, an adult that she considered to be like a mum, who she trusted in the midst of her peers, is telling her, is actually confessing, I'm being abused. I don't realize I'm being abused, and I'm saying as if it's, and we realize now that she's been diagnosed, Angelique has been diagnosed with autism. She's just mentioning something that's happening to her. Again, an adult hears this and fails to do the right procedure thereafter. So you mentioned that this adult then, that she said that you're one of my business, she called you a bad child.
I was called bad, and I remember them calling my family and telling my family. I think them time my mum came, because the social worker said that my abuse was so complex that even now when I speak to like professionals, they're just like, you
can't do it.
Because I've suffered with suicide. I've had medication for it. Also like not sleep paralysis, like don't sleep. This time my body just insomnia, so I don't go to sleep, my body don't shut down. I think hence after I gave birth to my second born, and I suffered a psychosis from that because I was so suicidal. But this particular family member then spread the word to everybody. And I remember that day going back in the car with my dad, I was being blamed.
Your dad was blaming you?
Of course. They don't know how to handle this.
Your dad was blaming you that your stepbrother...
It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. It was something I should have said something. Why didn't I say anything? And we need to understand, like, I've gotten to a point that I don't blame my parent, because you can't give what you don't have. You can't protect when you have never been protected. I had to understand the dynamic of my father's and his siblings growing up, how toxic it has been. I had to understand how we've been grown up. And I think yesterday in the live with Papa Thompson, he was talking about the slavery, like the mentality they have. We are not regulated with how to solve the situation. So this is why you see a lot of grooming. I hear a lot of like victim when they tell me, they're like, they removed me. Those that have been removed. But then I'm like, but you removed one, but that person is still there. And that person can can groom a lot more than just that one more. So they haven't got that capacity. And this is why I'm doing this, is now to push parents, to push individual or survivors, or current victim to go and seek help. Survivors to go and seek help also, because I'm on regular therapy. My therapy is there, right across my room, right there. So and parent to go and start realize, like, come to your face, to now learning. So where there's going to be workshops, where this is why the Voice of Reason will be introduced with professionals like NZINGA, who's going to be literally doing these sessions with parents to know how to handle victim and to know how to, you know, be with, you know, help community for us to grow, to handle, to heal instead of prevention. Prevention, you need to, is a method of prevention also. Is to know how to give the skill. For the church, the reason why I mentioned with the church, because the church don't know how to deal with someone like me. As an adult, because of the time, as an adult, I developed very promiscuous. So like a person with self-harm, for me it would be sex. It was like, it was my coping mechanism. And a lot of the time I remember telling pastors, telling servant of God, that, you know, I'm being active, or sometimes I'll fall out and they'll be like, you're not praying hard enough.
And just even to touch on that, I feel like, sorry, please excuse anything, but one thing I do want to touch on is the fact that the church, we need to understand, one thing I want to make so clear is, because everyone loves this verse. They love this verse so much. And
not touching on my anointing.
That one even, I feel like people don't even, I honestly feel like people, they read their Bible for face value, but they don't actually study it.
They're not meditating, you're not studying on the word.
One thing I want to understand is, we're going to read just real quick Ephesians 4 verse 11. And it says, and I read in the name of Jesus, it says, and he himself gave some to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors, and some teachers, for the equipping of the saints, for the work of ministry, for edifying the body of Christ, till we come to the unity of the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God, to a perfect man, to the measure and stature of the fullness of Christ. Why, Sylvia, why are you reading this out specifically when it has to do with the church, Sylvia? The reason why I'm reading that out is because a lot of people think that their calling means that they must stand on a pulpit every Sunday, and that's not what you was called to. You was called to just be a teacher, but you're called to be an apostle in that area of education, which is to change and reform a culture. You was called to be a pastor, and maybe that pastor was you being a businessman or a businesswoman, and you are supposed to shepherd people into how they do their businesses. Maybe you being an evangelist was to you to indeed be an evangelist, but to be an evangelist in a different sector. You see, everyone loves the pulpit, but you don't know what it takes to really be the church. You are supposed to be equipping and edifying the saints. Edifying is the key word that it needs to be understood here. So when we're in the church, we have, let me tell you very honestly, in if I'm not mistaken, is in 2 Corinthians, or is it 1 Corinthians? 1 Corinthians 14. or 12, they're talking about the gifts of the Spirit. And they talk about how there's the gifts of healing. I need you guys to understand that when we have counselors such as NZINGA, that is the gifts of healings that God has given us. For all you know, NZINGA's a pastor and she's using her pastoral gift properly by going into and being a therapist. The church needs to understand that we have to also have safeguarding procedures. This is where we're going wrong, because anybody can be a pastor nowadays in the Congolese community, and I'm specifying this because we're talking about the Congolese community. Someone that could be a child molester yesterday will wake up today saying Zamba Solnanga, then tomorrow Akumina pastor outside bino ba conference azo simba bana bino, and then what's worse is that he's going round, he or she will be going round laying hands, and they're laying hands and their demons are coming onto you.
Laying hand is not even the case. Some is like, a lot of these predators, they do games like with the body.
But this is the thing.
Like hugging.
Yes.
Like, you know, shoulder, I think their shoulder, when they're actually touching the breast. Little thing of, oh, come, like being... These are the things that the church don't understand. That's why there's a lot of people, young people, don't want to go associate. Because a lot of these people, like, they hide behind the church. They hide behind, not only in the church, they hide within the community or within even the homes. And this is why, like, this live, because we're going to end soon, it's to empower others to come out. That there's no point of hiding it. We've been carrying on burdens that shouldn't be for us. And you can see, I've seen my life deteriorate from worse to worse, to the point I became suicidal. People wouldn't understand. I was this angry little girl, like there's like, you're 5'2" and you're there like trying to fight everybody. But I know, like, every time I say my story, people get shocked. Like, some people, it make them able to connect the dot now to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But to show that it's not okay, I've carried the burden of something that wasn't for me.
That wasn't yours.
And I didn't learn boundaries. I didn't learn self-worth. I didn't learn to voice myself. And even sometimes it is hard for me to voice myself, because every time I do, especially if you're still, I'm still in that process of healing as well. But it's when you're with your abusers, and us Congolese, we do this a lot. It's like, we don't even allow children to have anyone to speak to, not even like aunties, uncles, or anyone outside who have professional, who's equipped and able to heal. But you tell the child to shut it down. You're embarrassing. I know, like, even doing this, my parents, like, sometimes it makes them feel like they're ashamed, but I always try to reassure them, I know what I'm doing is for the greater good. I don't blame you. I don't say everything is your fault, but I just raise what I see as a red flag, but I need you to protect me. And it has taken time, even with NZINGA. I've told NZINGA, like, I've seen my mother and my father start to learn to know how to, like, protect me. So even though it's not as I imagine, but it's their way of protect. And I learned that it's their way, and that's how they do. But with parents, this is not bashing you. This is not putting you down, but it's a time of, you know, I think it's Malachi 4 verse 6 that says that the Lord will turn the heart to the parent to the children, and of the children to the parents, or else calamity will come in. Why? Because there's division. Why? Because there's this separation, because in the beginning it was not so. So this is where, like, the Voice of Reason was founded. And I've had so many times that I wanted to commit suicide, and somebody will come out and be like, God hasn't finished with you. And I used to cuss them people. I'd be like, yeah, you're a liar. But the more and more, like, I started to see, and especially like 2020, especially when I suffered that psychosis, people were seeing me, but I was badly, I couldn't even remember who I am. I had to ask my little sister, am I even dressed right? Do I look right? And from then it birthed this, like, I remember my psychiatrist, Laura, like, wherever she is, I love her to bit, like, because she was one who said to me, like, raise your voice louder. Because there's a lot that don't speak. And this is what I'm doing, is to empower, like, not to be afraid. Like, I'm not, now me talking about this, because there's a spiritual impact of it.
Of course.
Because I've suffered with, like, spiritual husband, spiritual wife. I've suffered with a lot of, like, let's say like spiritual attack. I've have like dreams, because it infiltrates you with your mental health and everything. And people don't talk about it because I'm scared. And this is why I'm not doing it because I want anyone to feel sorry for me, because you can't feel sorry for me more than I've been feeling sorry for myself. But it's to empower you to say that there are people around you that are like that. Yeah. Don't look at them. Let a victim be a victim. The perpetrator. And I don't know what wind the enemy has given many people. They never look at the perpetrator. And I always give the story of a young lady that she is one that I carried even until the day I will meet her, if she will ever come forward to me, is that I think during the time when I was young, her friend's dad was grooming her. And the wife, the mother, found out, ganged up with her daughter to beat up that young lady. I remember they dragged her even to the bathroom, and them time we had MySpace, High Five, and they videoed it and they put it online. Couple of years later, that man was still welcoming in the community. That man was still respected as tonton and tel. But that girl was labeled bad. I could understand her pain because I've been there. I know what it feels. But she then went into alcohol. A lot of us went into alcohol, sex, drugs abuse, and all of that. And people have been, it's like, when you were young, you were being criticized for something you didn't even understand. Now you're older, you're still struggling to understand what happened to you, but you're still being criticized. You still don't have a voice. Until someday go in their grave, they still don't have a voice. So why should I carry a cross that's not for me? Carry your sin. Carry, and this is how we break generational curses. 100%. And this movement is this one on the 27th of September. Leaflet will be coming up. Is where we're going to gather together with pastors, professionals, community, mothers and fathers, young people. Let us all voice up how we can now start to move forward, and bring this reconciliation, healing, unity, love and peace before the coming of Christ.
Yes. I think, Angelique, I just want to thank you so much, first of all, because what you're doing we mentioned it just as we was conversing between the three of us before we went live, is the fact that this spirit of molestation, of lust, is one that comes, and it comes to silence the voices of its victims, which is why shame and guilt, but we give God thanks for deliverance. And people are not going to understand this. Oh, bino bozolo balobaka. Like, these are things that you're not supposed to talk about. We will cry out and spare not. We do not care about your feelings. We do not care about the shame that you think is going to come onto your family. We do not give a heck. We care about the victims of those who have been silenced by perpetrators you think is okay to still protect, instead of protecting those who were victims. I want to mention as well that this thing has been going on for so long, because we also mentioned about slavery. And when we go back, we're just going to keep it very brief. When we go back into slavery, understand that those slave masters used to make the slaves incest with each other. You would find that son will have to impregnate mother in order to breed. So we see that it started a long time ago, but instead of talking, instead of dealing with it as time has gone on, we have kept it hush. We have kept it hush. And I want everybody at home to please read Joshua 7. There's a man called Achan that kept something that was a curse hushed. And what happened was his whole family, the cattle, everything. Not only did they stone him, but they set him on fire. And that is what you're doing to your families without you realizing. When you keep that accursed thing so quiet, you are essentially setting your own bloodline on fire. And that is not okay. So we really have to thank God for the life of Angelique, for the life of NZINGA, for the fact that they are crying out and spare not to the victims who are watching this, victims who are currently in this moment, survivors, victims. I want you guys to know that your voice will be heard. We care about you. I want you to know that God is the lover of, He's the lover of your soul. He cares about your mind. He cares about your heart. He wants to preserve you. He wants to restore you. And there's people out there who are who really care, who genuinely care. Because even when we're going to have this event on the 27th, understand that there's going to be pastors that are going to be there, yes. And when we're talking about the religious infrastructure, these pastors have been vetted, okay? Not no weird ones. They're not weird. They're not like the tontos and tantines who after and they decide they want to be an apostle. No, it's not that. These are people who have gone through safeguarding training, who understand what mental impact, who understand spiritual impact can manifest into mental impact.
Yeah.
And we want to deal with every single layer of it. So I expect to see you guys there on the 27th of September. Yazing, I just want to let you close off.
Yeah.
Just with a last point, because I know you got a point that you want to mention.
No, thank you, Angelique, for having this platform to talk about your experience and to be the voice of those who are gone through it and who are currently going through it but don't have the courage. I wouldn't even say courage, but they just don't have the voice because the voice has been suppressed. Okay, and at the beginning I said this is a spiritual thing. Okay, people are carrying a spiritual stronghold that is holding them, stopping them from living the purpose of God, and that is not the will of God. Okay, that is not the will of God. And one thing that I really wanted to kind of touch on, because Angelique touched on a lot, within an African community, when parents are no longer together, it's so crucially important for both parents to sit together with the children and explain what is happening. Because what happens is that you begin to introduce the woman that you're having relationship with as an auntie, okay? The man that you have a relationship with as an uncle. It just distorts the idea to the child, okay? The child is seeing you guys hugging, doing whatever, normalizing it, and then one weirdo comes in and start to kind of groom your child to kind of like make it normal. Okay, so, or even take your child to therapy, take your family to therapy so that you can heal. Okay, so that we can begin to minimize the risk. Okay, it's really, really important that we minimize the risk by talking about by being open, by. And I think for the elder generation, some elder generation, we need to go through that healing process as well. Okay, because a lot of time why your children aren't speaking to you is because perhaps you yourself went through a traumatic experience and that you suppressed that. But now that your children are, bringing out the abuse, is kind of almost like it's a reflection of what you went through. Also but you're scared, resentment, denial. But you're scared to open that kind of worms because a lot of things will come. But you need to go through that process so that your children can begin to live in a safe environment. Okay. Healing requires not just talking therapy, but it also requires healing the body as well. Okay, and it's called somatic therapy. Somatic is a Greek word for the body. And scientists have now realized that talking therapy can actually re-traumatize the person. Talking about traumatic events can re-traumatize the person. There needs to be a focus on healing the body, talking about breath work is really, really important. That's why when we got to the GP, they recommend sleeping is very important. Okay, sleep hygiene is important. Eating healthy to kind of heal the gut. Okay, and exercising is also important. So we need to really focus on not just talking, but also kind of like implementing other works as well that requires that holistic healing. So yeah, thank you, Angelique, for having me. I just want to kind of share something. Because of the work that I do and understanding some gaps and risk factors that really makes kind of children really vulnerable. One of the things that God showed me is that a lot of parents don't even know the children and vice versa. And that's one of the tactics that perpetrators would use, okay? Because the child doesn't get affection from the parents, they will go and get it outside. So we need to kind of prevent that. And one way of preventing that is that I created like a journal for mothers, and this one is mother and son, like a fourth kind of journal to get to know each other, to really understand your children, and for your children to understand you as a parent is really, really, really important. Because if we don't foster that safe environment, again, our children will be prone to perpetrators. So you can check these journals on Amazon. Just write NZINGA PAULO, and you'll see some of the resources that I've got available to help, bridge the gap between parents and children.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Angelique. Your story has been so complex, so heartbreaking, but yet so victorious, because the outcome of it is the fact that we have you. You're still alive.
Yeah.
You are doing something that is encouraging so many. So truly, thank you to you guys at home who have taken time out to listen to today. And I really hope that let this be conversation starters that you start to have in your family. Let this be conversation starters with your children. Please have conversations with your children. Listen out to certain trigger words and how they might display something that is actually quite concerning, but they're children. They're just going to say it lackadaisical. It's just going to come out willy-nilly. But you want to take everything that they say into consideration. Do not take it lightly. Every adult is supposed to be protecting children, and we're all supposed to be responsible for each other as well. So let's just have grace. Let's just have lots of love for each other. And truly, thank you, Angelique. You are phenomenal. You are a hero. You have tuned in to Voice of Reason today. I've been your host, Sylvia K. I really hope that you have been encouraged, that you have learned something. And by God's grace, we'll see you on the 27th. See you. Bye.
See you. Bye.